The first talk of the session is a first-year undergraduate from Cardiff University who really did impress me during her work and told me to say something like that because she's looking for an internship. So, right, so everyone, let's welcome Zara.
Hi, I'm Zara. I have been coding for about a year and a half now, and I started off just learning like HTML and CSS online, and then came to Cardiff and started on Vince's Python course, which led to me creating this coursework, which is on addition chains. I've also since then done some things with Django and Angular. So feel free to ask me about those later too. So what is an addition chain? Well, it's kind of like an adding game with two rules. You can only use numbers you've used before, and you have to start at 1. And here's how that looks in maths, but I won't go into that because we're here to do Python, and that looks difficult. So we'll start with the number 5. We're going to do some adding now, nice and easy. It's the end of the day, and we're all a bit tired. So go from 1. We can use 1. So we already got it. 2. Another 1. We get to 5. So the length of this addition chain would be 3 because we've added 3 times. And the real challenge here is getting to that as quickly as possible. So obviously you can get to any number by adding 1 many, many times, but we want to find the optimal addition chain. So here's a really nice graph I found, but as you can see, so that's every option you could possibly get to. But if you're adding 1 every time, you get to 4 a bit slower. So let's take a slightly bigger number and do some more adding. So the fastest way initially seems to just be adding as big numbers as possible, and then when you get 16 here, obviously 32 is too big, so you start going backwards, backtracking until you get to 31. And so how would you code that? Well, the first thing I tried was getting to the biggest number and then doing the whole backtracking method. This is some code I found last night that I wrote a year ago. I don't really understand. It seems to briefly portray this concept. So if it's the number, then you put the length. If it's smaller, then you, add add it on. But basically, that didn't work. So I'll save you the 4 hours I spent realizing it didn't work. And you can, instead of going to 4 at the start, if you go to 3 and add slightly differently, you can get to 31 a little bit faster. And then I found this online, which is the fastest way to get to all of these numbers. And so I started thinking maybe I could use factorization or something. But if you look at this very carefully, the numbers have nothing in common on either side or in any of the branches, so that doesn't really work either. I was a bit stumped at this point. It was about 3 days after I discovered this problem, and I was like, okay, this might be impossible. I think I need to choose a different topic for my coursework. But luckily, I figured it out, I think. It still wasn't very efficient, but I did figure it out. And yeah. So yeah, this is the only way you can do it. So I'm going to do a little demo and explain my code because I didn't say yeah, I wrote my talk last night and realized I didn't really understand my code, so I've made it explain itself now. Oh yeah, should we pick a number to find the addition chain for? Maybe something like below 30 we'll go for? 29, let's go with that. Okay. Let me run that. Okay, so let's go back up. Too far. Okay, so let's go. So we start off with 1, and then we go into this main function here. And the first thing it does is send a certain the last few chains to another function which is called addTerm, which is here. So here I can't really explain it very well, to be honest. If you can look at it and understand it yourself, that would be really great. But yeah, so it takes every number that's previously been there and adds it on and makes some more chains for you. And this is a bit more obvious later on. So here we have 1, 2, and 3. And so here we've added 1 on the end of that chain to get 4. We've added 2 on the end to get 5, and we've added 3 on the end to get 6. And that's basically what the code does to generate every single addition chain ever. And then it goes back to this, and it goes to our checker, which simply just checks the last number in the chain, and if it's the number we're looking for, it'll be like, yeah. And if not, then it'll go back, and it'll generate some more chains for you. So we've done that here. And as you can see, we start getting quite a few later on, until it finally finds 29 in this last set, and the chain looks like this, and the length is 7. Okay, and this is a quite nice graph I made, because Vince said I'd get higher marks if I put a graph in. So I thought, what graph could I possibly do with this? So along the bottom here, you have all the numbers from 1 to 100, and along this side, the length of the optimal addition chain, and I just wrote underneath, could this be used to estimate the length of optimal addition chains? Probably not particularly well, but it looks nice. So what's the point? This isn't really applicable in a lot of things. There is one thing called the Schultz conjecture, which we'll get onto. I mean, really the point of this talk is that sometimes problems seem kind of simple, often when coding, and you just realize that not many things work. And if anyone wants to go away and try and come up with a more efficient solution, please do, and come back to me if you find it. So, this is Arnold Schultz, very handsome man, and this is his conjecture. So, IN there is the length of the optimal addition chain. Once again, I'm not really sure what this bit is useful for, but it made for some fun coding. So, here I've got my code for that. These lines are just finding all the sort of parts of the formula, and this is the important line. So if D is less than or equal to A minus 1 plus B, then return true. So that, if we go back, that just means that the conjecture is true. And this has been proved for all Hansen and Brouwer numbers, and so that's up to something like 520,000, and it hasn't been proven true for many numbers after that. And because generating the chains is so long and takes a lot of computing power, it hasn't been done for a lot of numbers, so once again, it's a bit of an unsolved mystery. Yeah, so that's about everything, really. Right.
Okay. So obviously, sometimes you have to just generate all the chains, and that's sort of hard. Are there any strategies you can use that most of the time will let you take a good stab at which ones are going to be fruitful and which ones are not going to be? Like,
yeah. Well, I sort of had a look into this. If we go back to this big graph, so like the most obvious one would be for along the right side. So you're just doubling the numbers. But I really don't think there are many.
Volume 1, which has a whole chapter on this subject,
Yeah.
including some details of the best known algorithms.
Cool. Well, yeah.
Any questions?
Not directly related to this. You said you started doing some stuff with Django, and is that related? Are you trying to put this in a web app, or is it something completely new?
It's completely different.
Oh, okay.
It's a news website.
Oh, cool. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Have you looked at calculating these numbers exactly is expensive. Have you looked at getting a cheaper answer that's got a bit of error? So try and make it quick.
Yeah. Well.
And then if you do you have any insight into why the errors occur?
Okay. Well, I feel like this is probably the most sort of intriguing thing about it. Is that you can look really, really hard in a graph like this and try and find faster ways to get there. You could definitely cut out some of the calculations and try and delete slightly overlapping chains. So say you knew the fastest way to get to 5, you could delete all the other chains that had got to 5 in a longer way, which would obviously be a way to shorten down the process, and I think wouldn't have any error. Oh yeah, you can. Okay, so there, yeah, it would have an error. Yeah. But there are definitely ways of shortening it down. But then I don't think you could. Well, you could know roughly how much the error was, but you could never really know with this topic in general. Yeah, that's why I kind of came to the general conclusion of you have to generate all of them to make it completely accurate.
So the brute force method, for what maximal n does it work? Like, is it 100 or 50?
Well, we can put whatever number we want in. It'll just take a really, really long time to get that. So I think that was your question.
Well, my question was, what n is feasible, like in hours, to achieve?
Wait, Vince, do you think you could clarify the question? I don't think I quite.
So, what's the minimal n that will finish in a day, let's say?
I don't think I'm getting it. So just like.
When do you run out of steam?
Oh well, I tried it for like numbers in the thousands once, and it just took like many hours to run. So I think it really just depends on computing power for the biggest number you can get to. But obviously, because it's exponential, it does get really long really quickly. And people who have studied this topic, and I'm sure have far more efficient code and bigger computers, haven't gotten to particularly big numbers yet. I think it's in the millions. It hasn't gone big yet.
Have you found an effective way to estimate the optimal length of the chain?
Well, I didn't particularly look into that a lot. I mean, the closest I really got to doing that was just with this graph, which is just a best bit line for the first 100 numbers, which again isn't going very far, and I imagine as you got bigger, the spread would become a lot bigger. But yeah, that's as close as I've gotten to doing
that. So did you look at, so your initial approach, the going up and then down again, obviously didn't work, but does it give you a good idea of a worst case estimate?
Yeah, I think...
Is it worth graphing that against the actual answers and seeing how much they're related?
Yeah, I think that's definitely something I would like to look into doing now, actually. I didn't particularly think of it, but yeah, it would definitely be the worst case estimate, and it takes a lot less